So next week is the graphic organizer lesson plan. That's a full lesson plan that you're going to do. Can anyone go through the directions so I can make sure that you're on the right track with that? Thank you.
You read, did you want me to read it?
Nope, just on your head.
You read a story with your students,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go through a graphic organizer together,
Mm-hmm.
and then you pick a new story for them to read on their own, or read it with them, and then they do another one on their own.
Another graphic organizer.
Another graphic organizer.
You got it. That's right. So are there any questions of what to do? I will make sure you get your lessons graded and back to you before you submit your next one. Just think about how long it takes you to type it up. Now imagine trying to grade 41 of those. It takes a while. So, plus other things, plus sub-twos. It's all good. Okay, so some loose ends here. Something we haven't gone into yet is our text structures. Do you know what text structures are? If you're more comfortable leaning that up against something, we can do that too.
Yeah, I might prop it up against this.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Maybe.
I don't want you to get in entirety. Okay, so text structures. This is another element that you would find on the brain board, but we want our students to know the difference between these different structures. This is a big time part of reading tests, whether we're talking about a state assessment or any kind of a reading test. If you're interested in getting your reading endorsement, after this class, if you want to take that one test, this is the kind of thing that's on there. Everything that we've gone over today and off of the brain board and all those text structures and text features and story elements and all of these different things we've been talking about are the types of things you'll find on this test. And you can be endorsed to teach middle school English reading if you have this. So this is something you want to know for various reasons, okay? This can be difficult for students. It's one of those things where they remember going through this when they maybe had the class before, but they don't always remember which one's which. So what happens with text structures, and you don't have to find it, but I want to show it to you. There was a sheet that has little blurbs like, fish leap out of water for many reasons. Sometimes other fish are after them. Sometimes they jump in order to capture insects. It's possible that some jump for the fun of it. And then we have to decide which text structure do we have. Do we have a description, a sequence, compare and contrast, cause and effect, or problem solution? And that probably seems easy when I first say it, but if you really had to decide, is that a little bit tricky? What usually happens, and you probably know this feeling, you know what it's not, but then it comes down to two, and you're not sure of these two, which one would I choose, okay? And that's what happens to students. So it really doesn't matter if you can narrow it down to two. You need to know which one is the one, right? So how can we help our students with that? So I'm going to go through these and show you how to keep them straight, okay? So are you ready? This is typically nationwide. The lowest part of any state assessment in reading is the text structures, okay? But we had the highest in this area. So are you ready to have the highest scores with your students? I'm going to give you all my tips. All right, so description describes. Okay, description is just a description. All right, so maybe they're talking about a mountain range. If you open up an encyclopedia and you read about a mountain range and you know how rocky it is and how tall it is and you know the elevation, where it's located, that's all description. If you take a person and you talk about how tall they are and what they look like and their thoughts and feelings, we're just describing them. Description describes. Say it. Description describes. Bam, that's it. Okay. Sequence gives an order. And you know about that because you know about sequence words. So if you see writing sequence words, that's a clue, that's a signal that this could be a sequence. Okay? So if it says first I opened the door, after that I walked in, finally I sat in the chair. So we're telling an order of how we got into the house, which is a really weird example, but it's just the one that came to my mind right now. But it has sequence words, okay? Sequence can also be something that's numbered. So if you have a list of something that's numbered, that's a sequence. If you have a list of maybe a school class schedule, your first hour class is this, your second hour class is that, that's a sequence. It's giving you an order to go in. You've got to follow that order, okay? Sequence is an order. Another big part of sequence would be something like a recipe. Like, first you add flour to the bowl. After that, you crack 3 eggs and add them to the bowl. Do you see where I'm going? And then after that, we put them in the oven and da 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 da. Okay, you understand a recipe. But it's not always a recipe. Sometimes it might be something like how to play a game, the rules of a game, or how to build something, how to build a birdhouse, how to build a fence, how to put together something. Okay? So any kind of activity that has a sequence, that has an order. The other thing that can happen too is once on a state assessment, we had this. It was a top 10 list, okay? But they went 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, all the way down to 1. And they were saying the top 10 reasons to do something like play karate or to participate in karate. And they said, oh, it's good exercise and it's good this and it's good that. But one of the questions was, what was the greatest reason, like the most important reason to participate in karate? And a lot of kids miss this one. Do you know why?
It started with 10.
They started with 10 instead of the number 1 reason. So it's important to show your students that if there's a list, that number 1 is the greatest, strongest reason. So what we did to make sure our students knew that was we did our top 5 favorite Christmas gifts, because in Baxter Springs we can say Christmas, it's not a bad word. And we had like a Christmas stocking and they wrote their favorite 5 gifts, but number 1 was their favorite gift they've ever received. And so that way they kind of made, so it went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so they were ready for the format of the test. Do you see where I'm going with that? Okay, that fell under sequence. All right, next we have compare and contrast. What does that mean? Venn diagram?
You're taking multiple things and you're seeing what they're, or you have 2 or more and you're seeing what they have alike and what they have different.
Exactly. So comparing more than one thing, what they have in common and how they're different. How they're alike, how they're different. I always do this, alike, different, because a Venn diagram has the alike part in the middle and the different part here. So I'd always I'd go up to my students, have I done this one with you, where I have my hands and I'll say, how are my hands alike? Have I done this in here? Well, how are they alike? What do you think kids would say?
You have 5 fingers?
5 fingers. Okay, how else are they alike? The same size, good. And how are they different? One has a ring. One's left, one's right. Good.
The way the thumbs are pointing?
The way the thumbs are pointing, good. And if you're up close, you can see like a little scar on one hand. But one thing they always would say how they're alike is they both have wrinkles. And they didn't say it to be rude. They were just making a legitimate
Like the knuckle wrinkles.
observation. What?
Like the knuckle wrinkles?
Yeah. Well, okay, that's what they meant. I'm sure that's it. I
Yeah.
like you. Okay.
Aw.
So compare and contrast. All right. Now we have the 2 hard ones. These are the 2 that they get mixed up with. Cause and effect and problem and solution. Cause and effect is probably the trickiest one. It's what happens and why. Cause and effect is what happens and why. And you have to kind of say it backwards. So if I say I went out into the rain and I got wet, what happened? Backwards. I got wet. Why? So what happened and why? I threw the ball up and then it fell down. Okay, what happened? The ball fell down. Why? Because I threw it up. So it's cause and effect is what happened and why. So if I say the cat ran across the counter and knocked over the vase and broke it. What happened? The vase broke. Why? Okay, so it's kind of backwards, isn't it? You think you've got that though? What happened and why? All right? Are you feeling like it sort of sounds like problem? Like we have a broken vase. But here we go. Problem solution. You have to have a problem. Say it. And you have to have a solution. If you don't have a solution, it is not problem and solution. So, for example, is there actually a solution? The cat ran across the counter, knocked over the vase, and broke it. Is there a solution there?
No.
No. So if there's not a solution to the problem, it is not problem solution, so it is automatically cause and effect. Okay? What if we said the cat knocked over the vase and broke it, so John glued it back together. So, do we have a problem? We have a broken vase. Do we have a solution? John glued it back together. So we have a problem, we have a solution. We have a solution. If we have a solution, it's automatically problem solution. Okay, are you following me so far? Are you ready for me to make this more complicated? Okay, so so far you've got it. So when you teach your students, you want to give them the outline. Now you need to go back and give them a little bit more. Sometimes you might have this, the beautiful, delicate vase from China with the hand-painted blue flowers sits on the counter. What do we have there? Description. We described it. Did we have any order? No. Did we compare it to anything? No. Did something happen?
No.
No. Did we have a problem?
No.
Did we have a solution? It's just description. Okay. You know rock, paper, scissors? I want you to do rock, paper, scissors with the person next to you real quick. And Colby, we'll do it from afar. You ready?
Oh, wait, we have to like 1, 2, 3.
Oh, how long?
Okay, give me 5, 4, 3,
I gave you
2,
5.
1. Okay, so what happened there? We had one sign can trump the other. So funny thing, we had the same like first 4. Okay, but we finally had a scissors and a rock. And what happens there? The rock does what? Crushes the scissors. So the rock trumps the scissors. I used to use that word all the time. We're going to use it as like outranks, and that's how I'm using it. Okay, so, all right. So, description, let me just say this, loses every time. If you see more than one of these text structures in a text, description is going to lose every single time. So, for example, if you say, the beautiful hand-painted vase from China with the delicate blue flowers carefully around the lid of the vase first was in the living room. After that, it was moved to the family room. It was finally moved into the owner's master bedroom. That's a weird example again, but you're following me. So what did we have? We had description and sequence. And that's when kids are like, I see sequence and I see description. What do I do? Well, if we know that description loses every time when they go up against each other, who won?
Sequence.
Sequence wins. We have sequence words, sequence wins. Do you follow me? Okay. What if we say, okay, now we're going to get more complicated. How about the beautiful hand-painted vase sat on the counter and the fluffy Persian cat went running by the beautiful vase and knocked it over. What wins? Cause and effect. What happened? Got knocked over. Why? Cat ran by. But we heard the description of the cat, we heard the description of the vase, but still, cause and effect wins. Are you ready for this? And this will happen to elementary kids. The beautiful hand-painted vase from China with the pretty blue flowers hand-painted around, whatever. Okay. The vase was sitting on the counter when the beautiful Persian cat scampered across and knocked it to the floor and broke it into a few pieces. So John swiftly glued it back together. Okay, so what do we hear? Do we hear some description?
Mm-hmm.
Do we hear cause and effect?
Mm-hmm.
Do we hear problem solution?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a little bit of sequence, like
Mhm.
first this and then that and after that? Are you like, do you know that feeling? Like, I can get this, but I don't know which answer to choose. Okay, so are you ready for this one? Problem and solution. If there's a solution, it trumps everything. It wins against everything. Problem solution wins every single time. This is the part that teachers forget to teach. They just say what these are and then they go, good luck. But you need to teach them which one has more weight than the other. Okay? Which one's represented the most. But if there's a solution, it's always, always, always what? Problem solution. Okay? So now you know which one always loses, which one always wins. Then with these over here, it's which one do you see the most of. If you see a little bit of sequence and compare and contrast together, just which one has the most represented. Okay? Believe it or not, that little lesson right there taught you some things that will cause you, if you were to take the test now, you would be way up here. Because you know the ranking of all of this. Okay, so now let's go back to this one. Fish leap out of the water for many reasons. Sometimes other fish are after them. Sometimes they jump in order to capture insects. It's possible that some jump for the fun of it. This one's hard, isn't it? But what do you think it is?
Description.
Wait, can you read that?
Fish leap out of water for many reasons. So we have some action going on. Something's happening. But let's ask ourselves, do we have a solution?
No.
No, but we have something happening. So let's know that there's an action. They leap out of water for many reasons. Sometimes other fish are after them. Sometimes they jump in order to capture insects. It's possible that some jump for the fun of it. Cause and effect. Okay, they're jumping out, and now we're telling all the reasons why. Why do they jump out? Sometimes other fish are after them. Sometimes they jump in order to capture insects. It's possible they jump for fun. Okay, that was a little bit hard. I know the first time it's kind of... Okay, let's try this one. A sudden sliding of snow and rocks covered the mountain climbers. A German shepherd dog discovered the climbers buried alive under 30 feet of snow. A first aid team rescued and treated all the climbers.
Sequence.
You're so good. Why? Because there's definitely a solution. There's a solution. What was the solution?
They got treated.
They were treated and rescued. There were like 2 solutions, right? If you see a solution, it's always problem solution. But at first were you like, I hear some other things, but then once you heard the solution, bam. Okay, how about this one? First, pour 1 quart of warm water into a bowl. With a wooden spoon, stir in 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of salt. Next, crumble small pieces of, you know this, right? Aluminum foil and add it to the water. Then soak the piece of silver in the mixture. What is it?
Sequence.
Sequence. What was your signal? Sequence words. Good job. Ready for another one? The animal hadn't made a sound but had left tracks outside our tent. The footprints were about 4 inches long and 1.5 feet apart. Each foot had 4 egg-shaped toes. There didn't appear to be any claw marks on the toes. We weren't certain but wondered whether the prowler had been a mountain lion.
Compared to that.
It's kind of debatable, isn't it? So we hear a lot of description. So what are we comparing? So Sue, are we comparing anything?
Like we're comparing a dog and it doesn't say it.
So each foot had 4 egg-shaped toes. There didn't appear to be any claw marks on the toes. We weren't certain, but wondered whether the prowler had been a mountain. I don't think we're comparing and contrasting. So if we're not comparing and contrasting, we have a lot of detail. So description. Nothing really happened. Let's try this one. A U.S. family of today needs about $40 more a week for food than it did 10 years ago, when the total needed was about $50. Families in many countries of the world have seen similar increases in food prices, as well as in the prices of other items.
Compare and contrast.
Good job. This one usually takes a little bit longer for kids to figure out. So what made you say compare and contrast? What are we comparing and contrasting, Carly? Now and then. So what the prices were then, what they are now. Was there a solution? No. All right. While he was making a movie, and long before he became president of the United States, Mr. Reagan had a pistol fired near his right ear. The accident left him with a hearing loss. Are you already starting to think about this? President Reagan finally decided to have the hearing loss corrected. He began wearing a hearing aid.
Problem solution.
You are confident with that because you know it had a And you know, if it has a solution, it trumps all the rest. You're getting this, you're getting this. The more you do this, the easier it gets. The bright afternoon sun shone through the dusky windows of the high-ceilinged room. A portrait of John Dean, the kindly and successful merchant, highlighted the north wall. On the opposite wall, his wife Emily smiled from under her lace bonnet. Portraits of their 2 children hung on the east wall. Very good. They're just describing the portraits that are hanging on the wall. Good. Are any of you the type of people who can read a little too much into something? Yeah, I can do that too. I can talk myself out of a correct answer very easily. So you want to rely on what you know, which is description always loses if you see other factors, solution always wins, and then these others go for which one has the most represented. Okay, last one. Even though daycare centers for preschoolers and retirement homes for the elderly might seem very different, they often operate well together. Children go to retirement homes and visit with elderly residents. They take part in sing-alongs, shows, and parties. A wide difference is their ages, but children and senior citizens find many interests in common. And what are we comparing and contrasting? Good job. Okay, do you think you've got a grasp on that? All right, something you can do is this banana book you had passed out to you earlier. What I have is each of the text structures here, and I have description, and I just have the students create any kind of little sentence or paragraph that's a description. So they can take a theme. So I had one student once, because we're always talking about food, he started with bananas. Surprise, surprise. And he just described bananas, crescent shape, the color, the stem, and all of this. And then when we went to sequence, he had the steps on how to make a peanut butter and banana sandwich, okay? Then, for compare and contrast, that's when he compared the banana to a candy bar like we talked about in class the other day, and he made a Venn diagram. Doesn't always have to be a Venn diagram, it can be a paragraph that just talks about the differences and similarities. Then cause and effect, they had the banana peel was on the floor and the man slipped and fell. What happened? The man slipped and fell. Why? Okay. And then problem solution, would you just turn that into a problem and a solution? So how could we have a problem and a solution with banana?
Can't open
So who couldn't open it?
it. Child.
Okay, the child could not open the banana, so
Look at his mom.
guess the gorilla graciously cracked it open and handed it to him. Problem solution. Think you got that? So, but the students can get creative and come up with their own examples, and that's a great way for them to demonstrate that they know all of these. I've also created the banana book to have the students do the very same thing with the 6 traits of writing, and they can demonstrate an example of each of those. And so this is just a fun, different way to come up with that. All right? Questions on that? Okay, so some examples for the banana book for 6 trait writing are: Mother Nature knew what she was doing when she made bananas. For starters, they are a perfect companion sliced on top of a bowl of cornflakes. In addition, they travel happily in my lunchbox, encased in their own wrapper. To top it off, there's just nothing better than ending your day with a banana split, as you can see on Bananas About Bananas. So which 6 trait did you hear there? Sequence, that's right. Sequence, which goes back to organization. Good job. How about this one? As I walked into the kitchen after baseball practice, I could hardly wait to enjoy the crescent-shaped, sun-ripened banana that practically called out my name.
Word choice.
Word choice, word choice, good. This one is, my brother thinks bananas are the most delicious food in the universe, period. I don't. Kind of a tricky one. Fluency, a combination of long and short sentences. Do you think that'd be easy for students to do? Conventions, I have the students, they put the types of sentences, remember we talked about that? So declarative, imperative, interrogative, exclamatory, so they just have an example of one, like, I can't believe I slipped on the banana. And, do you like bananas, question mark? Put the banana peel in the trash. Okay, imperative, and bananas are a good source of potassium, declarative. So, and because of that, it has different punctuation at the end of the sentences, depending on the sentence type, so. Voice, even if I was double dog dared, I would never eat a banana. Come on, man, it's slippery, mushy, and just plain gross. What's that? Yes, so that would, yes, personality, putting your personality into it, good. And then we have ideas and content, I'm giving it away, and you already know my, oh, I have 2 examples I haven't given you. Bananas became popular in the 20th century. And bananas are used in the textile paper industry. And there are more than 500 varieties of bananas. New banana trivia, what can I say? What have you learned in Mrs. Abbott's class? Bananas are radioactive and, okay, I'm just kidding. Okay. Today I passed out this interactive journal. Sometimes instead of using a gratitude journal, it's nice to have an interactive journal. And this is something Fountas and Pinnell, our textbook, talks about doing, where maybe the teacher's reading a novel to the class, and then there will be a question that goes along with that novel, and then the students are to take that question from the board, they write the question on their left-hand side of the paper, and then they answer that question on the right-hand side. It's smart to have them write that question down, because if they do not finish the activity and the board gets erased, or they take this home to finish, they still have the question there. Some teachers will print labels and have the kids stick those labels on that left-hand side of the questions that they want them to answer. Sometimes they'll just cut them out and have them glue them in and answer them. But the directions will go on the left, and then the student work will go on the right. It's nice to leave a few extra pages at the beginning, and you could even have a table of contents. This is something you could use with science or social studies. It's really up to you how you use it, but I wanted to show you a design of how you could put that together. Also, again, you could use this with any subject. So, there's that. Lots of little things, right? Next, we want to talk about text features. You know what those are? What are text features?
Like the title, caption.
Yes, things like captions and that type of thing. Can I have the leader from each table come up and get a paper, just one paper to share with your team? Or maybe we could do 2 in this class. You're just going to look at these, and I just reuse these each semester. So I want you to look at this paragraph, okay, with the text features. This is an article without any text features. Can I, hold that up for a sec?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, there you go. So no text features are shown. How does that look to you? Are you excited about reading it? Okay, I want you to turn the page and notice that the next page is the exact same article, but it's broken up with text features. Okay, so what do you see as the differences there?
There's pictures.
Harley?
There's pictures and tables and
Yes. Yes. And the information's broken up and it makes more sense, right? Thank you. Okay. I highly recommend that you make bulletin boards on these foam core boards, and when you take them down, you don't have to take every little piece off, but you just keep them all stacked up in one nice stack, and then when you want to put up a bulletin board, you just put this there, throw a long pin in it. These are actually quilting pins, they're a little bit longer, and then your bulletin board's up and ready, and you can go on to other things. Okay, so especially if it's a board you know you're going to use every single year over and over, then I'd recommend it. And I just have everything glued on so that it stays on. These are from my classroom. That's how old these are. Okay, so text features are things that break up the information. So we have headings, we have subheadings. Sub means below, right? So think about that subject, or the prefix sub means below. And so that's below. Subheadings, they break the information up into different parts. So here's our heading, way to grow, and then the subheadings sort out the information. Doesn't that make a little bit more sense? Isn't that more pleasing on the eye and good presentation? Okay? So I just wanted to show you the power of having good text features. Also, when you have the heading is the main idea. It tells the topic and what the story is going to be about. Okay? Your subheadings, again, break up the information. If you have something that is in bold print, that's oftentimes going to be, it's an important word, and oftentimes it's a vocabulary word. Okay? If you have something in italics, that's also an important word, but it's more of a special word. So it's a word that might be a different language or something that they're not used to seeing. Okay? So bold words are usually the vocabulary words, and then the italicized words are the special words that are like a different language. Okay? Or a hard to pronounce word. Questions on that? There's not much more to say, but I will say that if you use something like a weekly reader or your science book has this, I would invite you to, every time you get that weekly reader out, say, who can give me a heading? Who can give me a subheading? Who can give me a keyword? And that will just get your kids good at knowing the difference between subheadings and headings. Okay? Good? I've saved the best for last, which is spelling. Yeah, I'm so excited. Been waiting to do this one. Okay. When I taught 5th grade, the majority of the kids took the regular spelling list. And what I would do is I would copy the words onto, I actually typed them myself because the workbook page was just kind of boring, and I like to give the students 2 of these pages like this. One to keep at school, one to take home. So they could study at home and study at school, and they always had them. This was just a little easier. Plus, the bright color made them easy to find. And what we would do is on Monday, they would get their new spelling list. And we would go through the words together, and I'd have them say each word with me. Do y'all have yours? Okay, so we're going to be elementary kids. So, are you ready? This is without readers. Canyon.
Canyon.
Tornado.
Tornado.
Breeze.
Breeze.
Cafeteria.
Cafeteria.
Coyote.
Coyote.
Tomato.
Tomato.
Barbecue.
Barbecue.
Mosquito.
Mosquito.
Okay, you get the gist of it. So have your students practice every single word and make sure that they're looking at the words while they're repeating them. Don't have them just looking around the room, because there is an association, like we talked about on the first day of class. If they are looking at the word, it's going to lock into their brain that much more. So we want them looking at it. Once you go through the words, then you want to go back and talk about tricks that you can find, mnemonic devices within the word. So let's look at number 8. Do you see the word quit in the middle of mosquito? So that's a way for your students, that's a word that they can commonly misspell. So you can say, look at that word quit. Or look at number 12, alligator. A lot of times students misspell the 4th letter of that word. What do you think they usually do? It's A-L-L-I-G-A-T-O-R. But what do you think they do instead?
A.
Alligator. They want to put an A. They hear that A sound. So we want the I sound. So you could come up with a trick like, I am in an alligator. Can you imagine if you were inside of an alligator? And that helps them remember that. Or if you can have them even pronounce it differently, like instead of alligator, they'd say alligator. So say it with me, alligator.
Alligator.
So when they write it, they'll do that. Do you have any words that every time you write it, you actually mispronounce it so you can spell it correctly? What words are those? Wednesday. So what do you say?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. What's another one? That's a good one. That's a pop. February. What do you say?
February.
It's weird, isn't it? February. Yeah. What else? What else? Good one.
I sing the song that's spelled banana.
Oh, Gwen Stefani.
Back town.
Move over, Gwen Stefani. Yes. What else?
I do for Mississippi MISSISSIPPI.
That's good. I
Because
remember
it's double
that.
P.
What else?
It's like definitely, but it's fine.
Okay. So finite is indefinitely good. What else?
I always had, in 2nd grade, I always had trouble with word together. So the
To
teacher
get
taught me to get her.
That's great. A lot of people have trouble with that word. That's very common. Good. Principal. A principal, like if you get hired by a principal, He is your pal, P-A-L. There's another word, there's a homonym principal. It's the principal of the reason why I did this. That's L-E. But a principal that you work for, pal. You never want to send an email, I'm so glad you're my principal. I'm definitely glad you're my
Defiantly.
principal. Yeah, I'm defiantly glad you're my principal. All right, number 16, a mistake they make on avocado. It's the third letter. It's an O. It should be an O. Avocado. But what do they want to put there?
A.
So point that out to them. Point that out to them. Avocado. Think about avocados are round. We have 2 O's in there. Okay, so you've got the idea. All right. Now that your students have the list, different teachers do different things. Some have the students write the words 5 times each. That can be good if the kids actually think about giving themselves a quiz. So imagine if you were to write these 5 times each. Do you think you'll have those kids that'll take Canyon and be like C, 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 A, 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 N? Okay, is that doing them any good?
No.
No. Okay, so we want them to actually quiz themselves. So what I would recommend to them is to say, okay, on question, or number 1, if you're writing Canyon, just look at the word and then look away and quiz yourself. Canyon. I'm going to do this without looking at the list. C-A-N, okay, Y-O-N, and then cover it up. Now give yourself another quiz. Quiz yourself 5 times. That's more effective than just writing it 5 times. This is also a good time to hone in on spelling. Spelling, yes, spelling, but handwriting, because it's an isolated, quick little word, and you can really look at that handwriting if you'd like to at this time, okay? Also, I think that spelling is one of those things, and I like to just say it. This is a test where I'm giving you all the answers. We're going to have this test on Wednesday and also on Friday. Here are all the answers. So we really should do pretty well on this, right? Because I'm giving you the answer. So that's when I go, how many of you will get a 100% on this test on Wednesday? And so some of them, like there'll be like 4 that like always get the hundreds and the hands go up. How come everyone doesn't have their hand up? I've given you the answers. What if I was a millionaire? Just think about this, psychology behind it. What if I was a millionaire and if you got a 100% on Wednesday, I could write you a check for $1,000? How many of you would get a 100% on Wednesday? Do you think I have more hands go up? Of course I do. Well, what would you do differently? What would you do differently than the first time? What do you think they're going to say?
Study.
How would you study? So call them on it. How are you going to study?
Quiz myself.
Okay, what?
Quiz myself.
Quiz yourself. Have someone give you the words and you quiz yourself. Study the words that you missed. What else would you do? What?
Rewrite the words.
Rewrite them. What else?
Make flashcards.
Make flashcards. So there are things you could do if you really wanted to. So I make that point. If you really want to have a good grade, you'll have it because you have the answers to the test. Now, if I just said I'm giving you a spelling test, I'm not telling you the words, there'll be 20, that's all I can say. Now that I can understand if you don't get the 100%, but I'm giving you the answers. Do you get my point? I'd like to encourage you with these older kids to encourage them to study these words. Okay, I've said my piece on that. There are different things like Spelling City. How many of you have Spelling City at your school where you're interning? You've experienced that app. It's where teachers can go in and type up all the words, and then the iPad app you can have the kids put in headphones, and then they can take their quiz from the iPad, and it will have the word, a sentence, the word. Okay? It also has activities and games that they can participate in to practice these words. I haven't had experience of using it, but the friends that I have that have used it really like it. They said it's a lot of work at first, getting all the words in and the sentences in and selecting the games, but once you have it, it's great, because if you give a spelling test, you're going to have to budget about 20 minutes. By the time you say the word, repeat the word for the kid who takes their time, okay, all of that. I also want to encourage you to have cover sheets for your students to cover up their answers as they do this. And then I like to on Wednesday have the kids grade their own. I know what you're thinking. What do they cheat? I'm telling you, I have a procedure. They only have their paper out and their cover sheet out, and they had their pencil to take the test, and the pencil goes away and the red pen comes out. They grade it, but then they have to pass it in to me. And because those are the only things out, I can very easily see if someone's cheating. The most common way for kids to cheat is those little bitty pencils that are like this big and they're like trying to erase. So that's what you want to look for. But pencils are not supposed to be out during this time, okay? Also, make sure they don't have any words out, that they don't have their list conveniently next to them on the floor, okay, that kind of thing. And I also talked to them about this. I think we talked about it. You'll have that chance to cheat. You have to decide if you want to be the person who's going to do it or not. So if I have a spelling word on the wall and on a poster that I forgot about, are you going to be the type of person who looks or doesn't look? And who are you hurting if you don't learn how to spell this correctly? Right? Okay. So that's part of it. Friday, I think I've talked to you, that's our post-test, and I always grade those. If they have the 100% on Wednesday, then they don't have to take it on Friday. Questions about that? Okay, my favorite game in the whole wide world for students to play for spelling is called Keeper of the Word. Now, a lot of teachers play a game called Popcorn? Sparkle? Okay. All right. Who can tell the class how Sparkle works? Because most likely if you ever substitute teach, some teacher's going to have you doing it. Yes.
Well, I've never done with spelling words, but I like our job. We do it with, we have skills that we work on each week. And so you start off with, how we do it, we start off with the name of skill, and then we go through all the steps, and I kind of give them at first, and then we start, and I go through each kid, so I'm like, name of skill, and I'll tell them at first, we'll go through like a couple rounds, where I'll say, okay, name of skill, first step, second step, third step, fourth
Okay.
step, and once you finish it, the next kid has to say sparkle. If it doesn't say sparkle, then he has to put his head down, or she has to put her head down.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then
So
I
they're
go-
kind of out.
Yeah, and then I go back and I say, okay, so what are you supposed to say? And they're supposed to say sparkle, because I don't move on until we get it.
Okay.
Well, then after that, I'll say, okay, we're gonna start on step 2, and I'll just point, and then they need to know in their head, okay, 3, 4, 5, sparkle, name of skill, 1, like, and I
Okay.
stopped saying anything anymore.
I'm really glad to know that. I have only heard of this game played with spelling, so I'm glad to know you could do it with other things. So we're going to try it with spelling words. So what would happen is if the teacher gave you a word, so I'm going to say canyon, and we'd start at one end, you know your order, and then you'd each say a letter, and after that word's spelled, then that next person says sparkle, and then the next person is out. Is that correct? Okay. So, Nicole, okay, you're going to start us off. First letter of canyon.
C. N. Y.
Oh.
In.
And then Rachel's out.
Aw.
Okay, so the next word is tornado. And do you see how we do this? And we keep going until we have one winner. Now that is one way to practice this game, but it's not my favorite way. I'm going to show you my favorite way. It's called Keeper of the Word, and what happens is this. You have your keeper come up, and they have a list. And they choose one of the 20 words on here to spell, and I'm going to choose my word. Okay, and then they write that number down on a Post-it note that no one sees so that they can't change their word, right? Because you know how kids are. They might change it if they can. And then they draw names from the class. Everyone has their list in front of them, so they can study during this whole game until it's their turn. Okay? And you're going to try to guess the word that I have chosen. Okay? Now, here's how it goes. I'm going to draw a name, Addison, and this is what you'll do. This is the one time you can't look at your list, but you'll say, is the word, for example, if you say, is the word canyon, C-A-N-Y-O-N. And then I have to spell back without looking, no, it is not canyon, C-A-N-Y-O-N. And everyone marks down on their paper that it's not that word, you can like cross it off. Okay? But if you misspell it, I can say, no, it's not K-A-N-Y-O-N. If you say, is it canyon? I could say, if you say, is it canyon, K-A-N-Y-O-N? I can say, no, it is not canyon, C-A-N-Y-O-N. And if you all are paying attention to every little letter, you'll know, ooh, I can try that word again because she's allowed to say no if it was spelled incorrectly. And we don't even tell you. And everyone else is like, is it canyon? C. That's how they do it next, okay? All right, but we keep trying until we get to the word. And whoever guesses it gets to come up here and be the keeper. All right, or if you guess it and spell it correctly, you get to be the keeper. All right, so are we ready? So Addison, you get to try. So
Is it
any word you want.
avocado? AVOCADO.
No, it is not avocado. AVOCADO. And you spelled it correctly. But if you hadn't, but everyone who's looking and paying attention, do you see how you're honing in on every little letter right now? Have you played this before? I feel like maybe you're getting this.
I don't know. but-
Okay, okay. All right, so are you ready for the next one? Next person is Chessa.
Burrow. BURRO.
No, it is not Burrow. B-U-R-R-O. Chelsea.
Is it tomato? T-O-M-A-T-O?
No, it is not tomato. T-O-M-A-T-O. By the way, if she spells it right and I spell it wrong, she gets my spot. So sometimes they want to give you a hard word so that you get out of there. But you'll have to know how to spell it to get me out of the hot seat. Do you see where I'm going with that? Okay, next is Cassidy.
Is it alligator? A-L-L-I-G-A-T-O-R?
No, it is not alligator. A-L-L-I-G-A-T-O-R. Lindsay.
Is it rodeo? R-O-D-E-O.
No, it is not rodeo. R-O-D-E-O. Sabrina.
Is it Plaza, P-L-A-Z-A?
No, it is not Plaza. P-L-A-Z-A. Chelsea.
Is it chili? C-H-I-L-I?
Yes, it is chili. C-H-I-L-I. Something I am hungry for. Okay, so then you would get to be the keeper. Would you like to play? Come on, be the keeper. Okay. So, but do you see why we have the student write the number down so they can't choose or change it? Okay, so you can sit here if you want to or stand. It's up to you. And then, okay. All right, we're starting over. So everything that's been crossed off is back up and fair game.
What? Don't sass me, I'm the teacher. Emily.
Is it plaza? P-L-A-Z-A?
No, it is not Plaza, P-L-A-Z-A. Daniel.
Is it bonanza? B-O-N-A-N-Z-A?
No, no, it is not. I forgot which one you said. I almost died.
Bonanza. It is not bonanza.
No, it is not bonanza, P-O-N-A.
Okay, so we're gonna stop there just because I want you all to just hear a little bit more. Thank you.
What was your word?
Okay. Oh, yeah, what was your word?
It was, what one was
Mesa?
it? It was Mesa.
Okay. All right, so what do you like about this game? Do you like this game? Carly, do you like this game?
Yeah, I do. I like that the students got to go up and be the teacher
Mm-hmm.
during if they
Okay, so there's participation.
Yeah.
Okay. Chelsea?
It's engaging.
It is engaging. What else, Cassidy?
I like how everyone's spelling the words and not just sitting.
You're not just sitting waiting for your turn, but you're actually, and probably studying them, right? Because you're like, I want a hard one. I want to be the keeper. And usually I'll give a team point if you get it. So it's not like a big deal, but it's something. So people want it. Yes.
I like that it's not one letter at a time. So
Right.
you're not having to focus on, okay, she said C, so I just have to worry about the H that's coming up.
Right. So you have the whole word. Good, good, good. And did you notice that we talked about some of these words and then you had them and it's like avocado, so we're like, okay, because honestly, and it's okay, a lot of us would have misspelled that if we hadn't had that review. It's just part of it. We're not going to know how to spell every single word. All right? And so it's a good way to review that. Okay. So do you see the difference now between the different games? Do you want to know how I learned about this game? I have nieces, and I'll tell you what, no kid is safe around me because I'm like, what's your favorite book your teacher's ever read to you? What's your favorite thing you've ever done in school? I'm always like quizzing kids. I'll be at the dentist office and there'll be some kid sitting there and I'm like, what grade are you in? And they're like, stranger danger. No, just kidding. No, but usually I look pretty nice and friendly and they don't run. But I ask, and I find all kinds of, especially in bookstores. When I'm in a bookstore and you see these kids who are readers and they're like looking at books, like especially like intermediate grade books, I'm like, what's your favorite book you've ever read? They're like, we read like 2 books a week. You know, that you'll have kids like that. And I've gotten some great recommendations from kids. So, back to my niece, Andrea, when she was in elementary school, by the way, she's 30 now. Okay. When she was in elementary school, she had a teacher that played this game, and she said it was like a really good game. And because it really caused her to know her spelling words, and like everyone like really got into it and wanted to play it, and okay. So I started playing it with my kids, and it worked. Do you remember this game? Did we ever?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Mm-hmm.
It's good, isn't it? Okay, so there are no rules. I've Googled it. I've looked for the rules for this game, like typed out somewhere. Don't have them anywhere. But isn't it great? So I'd like to recommend that you try it and play it. Also, if you have students who have a different list, imagine a modified list with completely different words. So imagine you have a group of students who are, okay, so they have that lower list. They could play it. Like the 5 of them could play it with their para, couldn't they? And they get to be the big duck in the small pond of their words. Like, I know my words, right? And when I had my challenge words, my challenge group would play it together. And they had the gist of it. So do you see how that works? So it really is something for everyone. So I know you wish we could just keep on playing, don't you? Okay. Does anyone have anything that you see going on in spelling in intermediate classrooms that you really like, that you'd like to share? Caitlin?
It's another spelling practice, but we just played last week. It's like spelling battleship.
Oh, cool.
Super awesome. And my teacher made her own little board. So they have to learn coordinates.
Uh-huh.
So she makes her board and she draws like the spelling word out. She had all of their words had 4 letters last week,
Okay.
and so there's enough space for that. And then they guess as a class, and she says they have like 2 rotations through the whole class.
So how does it work? Do they just guess the word and then spell
They
it?
guess a coordinate. So they guess like E5, and she'll say hit or miss, and
Okay.
then she'll
So if it's a hit, does she say what letter it is?
Yes.
And then they have to guess the word?
Yes.
Boy, I like it.
Uh-huh.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
Could you try to videotape that sometime? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I had to get her handouts because
That's really awesome.
she said she got it from like her student like when she was student teaching from her.
Her
teacher.
cooperating teacher. Yeah, that's great. And it lives on through you. That's so cool. And you'll teach it to your students someday that you
Yeah.
have in your class.
Okay, so I sent this to my cooperating teacher the other day. It's roll and spell. So like you have a dice, and then they're in their like partner groups or whatever, and they roll it. And so if like you get a 1, then you write the word with your like other hand, your non-dominant hand. And then if you get a 2, you write the word as fast as you can. If you get a 3, you write the word with your eyes closed. Number 4, you write the word in a fancy way. 5, all caps, and 6, tiny letters. I thought that was cool.
That is really great. Did
So-
y'all hear those? Those are really great.
I like
It'd be kind of fun to do that for, like, they write their words 5 times each. They could do
5 different
it.
ways.
Yeah, like each time they have a word, they roll it.
That was cool.
What else?
Well, mine is Megan. My teacher, when she does the pre-test, they only have to write the words they missed.
That's good.
And when she does it, they write it 10 times, so that she makes them do like number 1, write the whole word, but number 2 beside it, write the whole word across, so they can't just go like C, 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 C.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They have to go across, so they
Mhm.
can't.
That's a good
ask the
idea.
actual thought process.
Good, very good. Rachel?
My teacher incorporates the types of sentences also with their words, and she has a 5 to 7 word sentence that has at least 3 vocabulary words in it. And then they have to list like, okay, it's a declarative or it's interrogative, or so we're incorporating that part in.
It's so important to embed that in what we're already doing. Yes.
My teacher uses the around the world with the spelling. You have to spell it the fastest.
Oh, yeah, that's good. It makes you want to study those words. I'll tell you what I hope you never do. Don't ever have them go to the board and write it next to someone, because that's so embarrassing for the kids who aren't very good spellers. And so there are kids who aren't, they're just not good at that. When we had our spelling bee, it was interesting to me, the students who could get 100% on the spelling test, but they couldn't on the spelling bee because they couldn't see it. If they couldn't see it, they couldn't spell it. And so we started having our spelling bee where we had marker boards and the whole school had that, and they could write the word as they were trying to spell it, and it just changed the whole game. But I will never forget some of those kids who got the A+ every time, but man, if they had to spell it without seeing it, they would miss it. Something. So, all right, that's gonna do it. All right, I'll see you in classroom management. Thank you.